now we're going to introduce oh my gosh, I hope you know Samantha. I have been sharing that Samantha Acres moved here to Cache Valley out of choice, I understand. And, if anybody else in Cache Valley wants to either corroborate or query my calibrations, I calibrate that Samantha Acres holds the highest frequency in our valley. She is a Dharma teacher, and that's not a little thing. She's teaching about improving relationships with ourselves and others through mindfulness and grace. A heart-centric approach. She teaches the traditional early Buddhist insight meditation styles of concentration and insight, as well as open awareness, while holding space for practice with deep kindness, compassion, and equanimity. She believes joy is a vital healing emotion. Sam is a guiding teacher and co-creator for Northern Utah Insight. She makes meditation accessible to all who wish to practice by explaining in easy to understand terms with a step-by-step approach. Her foremost intention is to lead with the heart practices, so they may hold difficulties that can arise from insight practices. Sam has trained through, I believe that's MTI is Mindfulness Training Institute.
Yep.
Berkeley, got it, and has mentored others through the Mindfulness Institute, studied and taught with George Haas in meditation, attachment with Meta Group, and is currently training with Gil Fronsdal through the Sati Center to become a Buddhist eco chaplain. The program of grace was developed and is offered in full through the upaya.org and was created by Roshi Joan Halifax, Cinda Hilton Rushton, PhD, and Anthony Back, MD. GRACE is a simple acronym that is meant to remind us to return to the present moment and remember our virtues and intentions for ourselves and others, especially in times of conflict. Sam offers this to people in conjunction with mindfulness trainings, and she is the inspiration for the entire workbook because in our session together, which was, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I get to do sessions with her. She said, we decided she was going to do a worksheet. And so she provided the first worksheet and it became an entire 70-page workbook. I don't know if you know this. And this 70-page workbook, I've sold more copies than books. So call it a win.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yes, it is. And just sit with this presence. It's harder. It's not really harder online because consciousness is information and it is non-local in the quantum world. And so Sam's non-locality is present when we're online with her.
Thank you. Oh, Christine, what a beautiful, heartfelt introduction. And I so enjoy being able to work with you and be present with you locally. And I'm really happy to be here with everybody and grateful that you asked and how awesome that this turned into a 70-page workbook. That's fantastic. Makes me very happy. So thank you. Thanks so much. Christine, do you, I'm wondering if, I will be giving some information on grace and how I have found this helpful in my own life and guide just a short practice for everyone. Do you have the questionnaire?
I do.
Yeah, I imagine that you had that little worksheet. So we could bring that up perhaps after the practice and see if people want to take a look at that. Yeah,
tell me when.
Okay. Okay, great. Wonderful. Thank you. I love that it's 11:11 right now. I just noticed that. I often
1:11 or 11:11, whatever it is.
1:11 or 1:11, 11:11, and whenever this whenever this time comes up or I see it, I always ring a bell. I have bells with me everywhere, so there I'll ring a little bell for all of us to begin. Oh, um, so yes, my main spiritual lens is through Buddhism, Buddhist psychology, and the earliest traditions of Buddhism as taught by a man by the name of Siddhartha Gautama. And these teachings have supported me over many, many years of recovery from PTSD and CPTSD as well. And I became more and more interested in the ways in which mindfulness practice and meditation practice could potentially have a farther reach than just sitting in meditation and kind of seeing what arises and what passes, this kind of thing, or getting into a concentration practice. And I started studying with George Haas, who was my main teacher and mentor for over a decade. And I trained with him in attachment meditation and attachment repair, which he practiced with Dan Brown, who was a PhD out of Harvard. And this was based on Buddhist practice and a way that we could work with attachment injury, attachment disturbances, and earn more security. So this really interested me. And I did this for quite a long time with George, and then trained with George and began facilitating with George in some of his trainings. And then I decided I wanted to expand even more and become a chaplain, a Buddhist chaplain. So my first experience was through Upaya. And this is where the G.R.A.C.E program came from, as Christine mentioned. And I did a 2-year program through Upaya on socially engaged Buddhism. And it was incredibly rich. There were 2 years of just a massive amount of information. And what I took from that entire, the first and foremost thing that I took from that program that I use on a regular basis is grace. And what I discovered about grace was that it supported me personally in very difficult, distressing times where I would become quite dysregulated because of kind of chronic trauma experiences. And what I discovered was that I could bring this practice in that exact moment that I knew I was dysregulated. And I could bring this practice in, and it would support a nervous system regulation for me. And what's so valuable about this is that the only way we can continue to experience compassion and a feeling of calm presence is if the nervous system is regulated. If we are in a sympathetic distress, we're not in a place that supports compassionate action and being able to see things clearly. And the same goes if we are in parasympathetic distress, so a freeze response. I think the other thing that was really helpful for me in this particular program several years ago was this idea that compassion doesn't have a burnout. So I'm going to speak a little bit about compassion from the Buddhist lens, because if you look up a definition of compassion, very often somewhere in that definition says to fix. It's like, oh, compassion means I have to fix something for myself or for someone else. Through the Buddhist lens, compassion isn't about fixing at all. Compassion simply means that we have the ability to turn towards pain and suffering, our own and that of other beings, and simply be with it. That there isn't actually anything to fix. And I think that the concern around, I think that the misperception maybe around fixing is that then that leads me to feel that somehow the pain I'm experiencing or the pain someone else is experiencing is problematic. But pain is just part of the human experience. Pain in and of itself isn't problematic. So through the Buddhist lens, the way that we experience compassion is that we start with what is called metta in Pali, the Pali language, or Maitri in the Sanskrit language. So some of you might be familiar with that. And this metta is a heart that is filled with kindness and unshakable friendliness. It's a wish for goodwill for ourselves and for others, and it is not dependent upon anything at all. It's not dependent upon me being deserving or feeling deserving of kindness and friendliness or another person. Like, it's not based on this view of that. And then once we have this capacity to wish everyone well, including ourselves, it's this part of the heart experience that then turns towards pain, and it naturally becomes compassion, and it just simply cares. The compassion burnout, I think this term that's used, and Cinda Rush talks about this a lot, that the compassion burnout actually isn't burnout if we're looking at it from a Buddhist perspective, because compassion doesn't have a burnout. There's nothing to do, so there's no burnout to be had. Where we get burned out is in the empathy realm. So, to be able to be compassionate, we have to have empathy. That is kind of an ingredient of the recipe of compassion. What we tend to experience is empathetic distress. At least that's how I experience it in my own practice, is that this taking on of someone else's pain and suffering as something that I have to fix, and then I pick it up and I take it on as mine and I carry it around with me. And then I do that for all 20 people that I meet with each day. And then that compounds and compounds and compounds. And then I'm also trying to manage my own experiences. And so we can experience empathetic distress. And this is a burnout, and it is a shutdown. And then we don't have access to compassion. So GRACE is an acronym, and I'm going to go through, we'll do a little practice. GRACE is an acronym that is meant to support our ability to move out of empathetic stress, and perhaps even not end up in it in the first place. Sometimes, maybe not all the time. But when I'm in it, and I've used it myself when I am in a tremendous amount of distress, and been able to utilize the practice to help me move into a more regulated state, so that from that place, I can make better decisions, more skillful decisions that are less likely to cause harm to myself and to the other person, right? So that's really kind of in a nutshell what GRACE is. And when I offer GRACE trainings, which I do, I have a self-paced GRACE training course, I include mindfulness training in it. And so that inclusion of the mindfulness training also includes metta. It includes all the heart practices of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. So in this short period of time, we can't really go through all of those, but just know that's meant to be a component of this. So GRACE is an acronym, and the G stands for the reminder to gather our awareness on our breath. So in any given moment, can we come back to the breath? And for some of us, it's hard to get in the body. And so the breath might be a helpful tool. And if the breath is not a helpful place for you to go to, and the body is, you could gather your awareness on your sitting bones, or gather your awareness on your feet. It could be somewhere in your body first, right? Yeah, Carlos, I'm just reading what you've said. Yeah, right. And this really stemmed from during COVID, the frontline workers, doctors and nurses and, healthcare workers specifically, experiencing a lot of what was being called compassion burnout. And so this program, this GRACE program, kind of came in as a response to that. And the Buddhist lens is that to be very mindful and careful about imagining and or saying that compassion has a burnout, I think we're in trouble as a human family if we go to compassion has a burnout. It's really the empathy. Empathy is being able to have a sense of what someone else is feeling. But that doesn't mean we need to take it on as ours. It still belongs to someone else, right? Yeah, thank you, Carlos, for that. So G is the reminder to gather attention on breath or a point in the body. The R stands for the reminder to revisit your particular intention. And this is really meant to be the particular intention for why you practice spiritually, whatever it is that you practice. For me, the intention, the greater intention that I'm like, when I revisit, it's like, oh, wait a minute. My interest is in not causing harm to myself or others. So what is that intention for you? And you can do that in like a heartbeat in that moment. The A is a reminder to attune to and attend to, first of all, body. Where is the body in space? Because when I get triggered, there's a tendency for me to dissociate, right? And also to start panicking by trying to regulate what's happening with thinking. And so can I attune to the body? Where is the body in space? Where are the sitting bones, the feet, the spine, the hands? Where is the body? How is the orientation? And then the second part of the A is attuning to the emotional experience. What is actually happening here emotionally? And if we can name it even. Oh, fear, sadness, anger. What is this emotional experience? And the third part is being able to attune to and attend to just bringing awareness to the mind. Like, is the mind scrambling? What's going on in the mind? And having that awareness. The C is to remind us to consider what truly serves. And the idea is that we can run through the G, the R, and the A kind of like right then and there in that moment to support regulation of the nervous system and to support us being able to be mindfully aware of what's happening for us in that situation. And then we get to the C, and the question is, what actually serves? Considering what serves, not what the angry, fearful, version of myself thinks serves. That might be lashing out at somebody. But what really serves morally and spiritually? What is of service to not cause more harm? And then we can make perhaps that decision. And from there, the E stands for engage and end. And I like to say engage and or end. Because sometimes once we've run through this, we might make the decision, okay, I'm in a regulated enough place that I can now engage with this other person. I can do that. And then if we choose to engage, the end is to remind ourselves to not take it with us. That's how empathetic distress occurs. So a boundary. So when the event is over, ending it, right? And I say and or end because sometimes what we discover is that we are still dysregulated enough that it might not be wise, that if we consider what serves, what's of service might not be to try to engage in that moment. And to actually end the experience, and not out of anger, but with compassion, and perhaps saying, I really need to take a break. Right? So in a nutshell, it helps us to create boundaries for ourselves and others, and is a way to kind of begin to track what is happening in my experience right now. Yeah, so that I can move forward from a place of kindness and compassion and some kind of regulation, hopefully. Right? Yeah. Good. So let's have a little practice, everybody. We'll really just run through the first three in a little mindfulness practice, because oftentimes the other two are helpful to kind of practice with when you have a little more space and time. Yeah, so good. Thank you, everyone. Let's just take a comfortable seat. If you need to stand up, that's fine too. You can stand up, sit down, lay down, whatever you'd like in your body. Just make sure, I always like to give the reminder, if you're sleepy, laying down might not be the best orientation of your body. So we don't want to fall asleep. We can't like awaken if we are sleeping. It's the Dharma joke. Good. All right. So let's all just take a nice full breath in and feel the breath in, feel it filling the body, and then feel the breath as it exits out. And then one more time, feeling the breath so that you can attune to that. And exhaling, just really emptying everything out. And as you empty the breath out, you might bring some awareness to your sitting bones and to your feet. Just to really have awareness of being in the body. And then see if you can just begin to follow the breath. So we're not trying to change the breath in any way. It's just noticing the breath moving through the body. And can you follow the in-breath even if it's very subtle, from the beginning all the way to the top? And can you follow the out-breath from the top all the way to the base? As if you're really just in the river of the breath. And if you're feeling sleepy, you might notice the in-breath a little more than the out-breath. And if there's agitation present, you might bring more awareness to the out-breath. And if the mind wanders off, with a smile and kindness, just come back to the breath. Over and over again, feeling it as it moves through the body. And it can also be helpful to notice the relationship between body and breath. There's nothing to fix or change, but just aware of expansion and contraction. And just right here in this moment, if you notice tension, can you turn towards those tighter spaces with care and invite breath in and out of those areas without any kind of expectation that they're going to change. But you might notice that they do anyway. And then from the space of the heart, there is a different flavor between the voice of the heart and the voice of the mind. And from the heart, do you have a particular intention or aspiration for your practices? Maybe it's for being here in this amazing summit. What brought you here? And what really matters to this heart? And really hear that with inside of yourself and know it. And if you're not sure of what your intention is, that's okay too. But this helps us to just lean into getting to know what it is. And then beginning to attune to the body. And just simply notice where your sitting bones are, if they feel heavy or light. Notice your feet. How do you know that the lower half of the body is actually here? Not through naming it, but through sensing it. And then see if you can feel into the back of your body. And notice the head. Invite the face to fully soften, the jaw, the tongue, the eyes, and you might even invite the brain or the thinking mind to relax a little bit more, just to soften. And how is the body in this moment? And then checking into the heart or any emotional content. There might not be any here in this present moment. But what does it feel like to really turn towards the heart space and kind of ask, hey, what's going on in there? And just wait for a response without the need to fix it or change it. And now check into the mind, not thinking, but just the felt sense of the mind. Is it more calm than it was 5 minutes ago? Is it the same? Is it more restless? I'm just getting to know what's present. And then just begin to return to the breath for now. And just notice the breath in feels like this. And the breath out feels like this. And if the eyes are closed when you hear the bell, slowly begin to open the eyes, but I'd like you to notice, keep some awareness in your body. So there's a tendency to open the eyes and send all of the energy back out. Now see if you can keep energy and awareness in the body as you slowly open the eyes in a moment. Thank you everyone for your practice and for trying that on. I'm curious if any of you want to put in the chat if that was helpful, even just 7 minutes of that. You're welcome, Britt. And if any of you notice that you feel, you may have already felt very calm, but do you feel more calm, more regulated? And if not, if you feel more agitated, that's okay too, just worth noticing. Yeah. Good, great, Melody, I'm so glad. Yeah, cool. Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks, Luann and Lisa, thank you. So, it doesn't take very long oftentimes, right, to get a little extra regulation happening, right? Oh, good, Carlos, I'm glad. Wonderful. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Tamara. Yeah. And so, right, Christine, I was just actually going to say this, so thank you so much, that, we can, in a few moments, sometimes they say to people, do you have 2 minutes in your car? Like, that might be all you have to see if you can mindfully, with kindness, turn inward and just notice what's happening, right? Without needing to fix it. It's just about attuning to it and attending to it. And then the way that it occurs, like we're learning how to learn. We are training. These are trainings. And so the more regularly we practice, the faster and easier it is, to know exactly what to do, right? Oh, good. I'm glad, Britt. Yeah, wonderful. Right. So a regular practice, very helpful. I usually suggest, at 10 minutes a day if you're able to. And this reminder, so many of us grow up in, family situations or social situations where we really learn that our value is based on being able to fix something. And the other piece for me was learning that one of the reasons, so I grew up in a family system where my value was based on my ability to fix things for my other family members. And that was how I made sure I wasn't abandoned, was because that was my role. But the other thing that I learned was that because I grew up having that role, I was never taught that it was valuable and or okay to learn about my own experience, my own feelings. And so because I didn't know how to be kind to my own feelings and experiences or to care about them, anytime someone else around me would be dysregulated, it would freak me out. I didn't realize that's what was happening for a long time, but I would end up in a panic because that was actually making me so uncomfortable because I didn't know how to work with that within myself. And so then it was like a doubling down. Then I really needed to fix it so that they felt better, so that I felt better. So, right, it gets kind of enmeshed in that way, the me experience and the them experience. So, Christine, do we want to take a look just with the time that we have left at the worksheet? Because this is something that we could just do in the same way that you were working with forgiveness, which I loved, by the way. I'm in the middle of, almost at the end of leading a forgiveness series. And so that was so perfectly timed. I was like, oh yes, this is great.
Are you familiar with Ho'oponopono?
I am a bit. My sister-in-law is trained in that modality. And so I am a little bit just in having short conversations with her. So these are just a few writing prompts that I came up with, and we might want to just take a little bit of time to work with these. And it might be that you quickly, I'll kind of go through, and then that way I'll give you the time. You might want to drop right back into the practice, and maybe we'll do that a little bit here. So this first one around the G, right? How does it feel when you attune to your breath? So because you just practiced that, you might remember, like, oh, how that felt. And so the invitation is to spend a few minutes paying attention to the breath as it moves through the body. And if you are agitated, bring more awareness to the out breath. If you're really feeling tired, kind of bored, you can bring more awareness to the in breath. And then just noticing what happens in the body.
I want to repeat that for people because
Sure.
I do a training with breath work, and
Great.
and it is very important distinction.
Mm-hmm.
So the inhale stimulates the system.
Empathetic. Yep.
Sympathetic system, kind of like You're taking deep breath because you're jumping into a cold plunge if Carlos were doing this. Okay. The exhale is you get out of the cold water and your nervous system can then like warm up and settle in and yeah, you sigh.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. Oh, it's
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, right, right. So the in-breath stimulates the sympathetic. So if we're really sleepy and lethargic, we want to wake up. And if we're already experiencing sympathetic agitation or activation, the out breath stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And so it can be very helpful to know that you can bring more awareness to one or the other. Thank you, Christine. Yeah, for bringing that up.
I'm always an exhaler when I meditate. So,
Right. Yep. Yep. Right. Right.
okay.
And so if any of you want to write a few things down, you could even take a moment, like I'll give about a minute or so just to even come back into that experience of being with the breath. And notice how the body responds, how the physical body, energetic body responds when you are purposely secluding your attention away from everything else and just to the breath. So take a few moments if you'd like to breathe. And then maybe just write down a little bit as to how it is, what happens.
I want to add, what does your body have to say to you? You pay attention
Mm-hmm.
to it.
Yeah, I like that. Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm. Mm. Good. And then if you're ready, moving into the R, which is, my body loves me. Oh, that's beautiful, Carlos. Yeah. I loved how my heart and mind were in conjunction and wanted the same thing. Ah, Katrina. Ah, so this is beautiful. This is really, as you can see, exciting to me. So in the Buddhist tradition, specifically, because this is just my main lens, the heart mind are the same thing. And one of the reasons that we experience suffering is said because our chitta, C-I-T-T-A, this is the heart mind, they become separated. And there's this experience of mind being very separate from heart. And so, Katrina, I really appreciate that you shared this wisdom that you experienced, because that's exactly right. When we begin to bring awareness and attention to the breath, what we say is that the heart and mind begin to settle. They begin to settle kind of back into each other. And so, yes, they both wanted love and sending out love to me and then outward. Yes, that's right. That's exactly right. Beautiful. Yeah. So what is the intention or motivation that you have for practicing? And so this, maybe this is practicing meditation. Maybe it's, your yoga practice or prayer, whatever it may be that is your spiritual practice. What really matters to you? What gets you onto the mat, the cushion, wherever it is that, and however it is that you're practicing. And what motivates you to be kind to yourself and to others? So take a few moments just to write down the things that inspire you, and that you value as reasons to be in mindful relationship with yourself and others. And you can come back to these, of course, these are a lifetime of practice over and over again. And so on this third one, I think what I'd like to invite you to do is I will read the prompt. So if you'd like to do it this way, if not, just read along with me or listen in. But if you were to once again close your eyes if that feels safe, if not, keep your eyes open and maybe just with a little downward gaze. And I'll read the prompt so that you can just feel this in your body. So take a few mindful moments to attune to the body and space. And see if you can find the anchors of your sitting bones, your feet, the spine or the back of your body, the hands, and also then the breath. So the reason that I'm asking you to just see if any of these areas are easy to contact or connect with is because when we become dysregulated, it can be very difficult to feel the body, especially the more intense the dysregulation is. And so we're training the brain and the nervous system and our proprioceptive system to know exactly what it feels like to bring awareness to our sitting bones and to the feet. So you might find one of those areas feels easier. And then you can just train over and over again, sitting, eating lunch. Oh, where are the feet? Where are my sitting bones? Standing in line at the grocery store. Oh, do I know that my feet are here? Right? So over and over again, practicing finding an anchor. Some people find the hands to be a helpful anchor. And then notice how the whole body is feeling. If that's possible, notice how the nervous system feels. Is there a feeling of relaxation? Is there a feeling of contraction? And then helpful to begin to notice if if it feels pleasant or unpleasant. Like, the body feels really tight and I'm holding my breath and that's unpleasant. Right? Or I'm feeling really relaxed and balanced and the head space feels cool and the heart feels warm and I can contact the sitting bones, that feels pleasant. And just notice if this feels supportive, and if so, how? And then you could take a minute or two to write down anything that you've discovered. And so anything in this third prompt that arises, whether it's really noticing something in the body that you hadn't known before. Or maybe it's turning towards the heart and feeling some kind of energy or resiliency around, there's an emotion here and it feels like this. And you might even take a mindful moment before we move to the next prompt to see if there's emotion present. It might be, like joy, love, feeling inspired, If there's a difficult emotion present, just noticing what that might be. And can you also feel it somewhere in the body? And there's nothing to fix. It is about being present with. Yeah, good. So let's just move to the fourth one for now, since you can continue to work with these on your own as well, of course. But the C, considering what serves. And Again, this might be kind of in the moment, pull up your bootstraps kind of experience, Okay, let me gather awareness on the breath, revisit my intention, attune to the body, the emotion, the mind, and then in that moment, what truly serves? And this is based on your intention. So if we go back to the intention, let's say the intention is to be present in, with myself and others with love, with kindness. If that's the intention and the aspiration, then what is truly of service of that in this moment? So the prompt just says, what serves your needs and the needs of others in that moment? Does it serve you in some situations to just push through? Does it serve you to consider what another might need instead of what you want or believe they need? This is a big one. And you might even think about times that you've pushed yourself or others into doing things that might not have been the best service. And this isn't about shaming yourself or blaming yourself. We're all doing the best we can in any given moment. But it can be helpful to remind ourselves like, oh, that didn't actually go well. That didn't serve my intention or aspiration. And then if this is a practice you choose to continue, you'll begin to notice changes. It says, what might you have been able to change if you had been mindful in those moments? And maybe practice these first 3 letters of grace. So we'll take another minute or so. You can just think about or write whatever comes to mind. Good. And then this last one around engage and end. This may be something that arises, again, kind of in the moment. But once we've gone through the G.R.A., and then we have this light that kind of shines on what will truly serve, if we are in a place where we can then be present with what's painful in a regulated way, fairly regulated way, then we might decide to engage, right, in that relationship, that discussion, even with ourselves. And then when we do engage with that particular experience, we then want to compassionately end the experience, right? Not take it with us. Instead of like taking it home, taking all of our clients and students and everybody, right? Some of us that are here that work in the healing fields, there can be this tendency to just realize that our house is overflowing with everyone in our lives. And I think we can keep them in our hearts, but in a compassionate way, where we're really just holding space for them in the moment. And if they arise in our mind, we might just say, oh, I so deeply care about you. And it can be just that. And then the ending also, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, it might be that you discover that you're not in a place to engage at all. There have been a couple of times for me where I have noticed that I need some time and space to be able to have a skillful conversation with someone, to have a skillful interaction, especially if it's become very highly stressful. And so the way that I end things with people in that moment is most of the time when this happens, it happens when I'm in conversation or discussion with somebody I'm close to, because it's really amped me up, right? Like it's triggered something within me. Tends to happen in our closer relationships. And what I usually will say is, hey, I've just checked into what's happening for me, and I'd like to revisit this. I'm not ending it for good. I just need a little time and space. And you might know what that time and space is. It might be, I need 5 minutes to walk outside. It might be, I'm not quite sure when I'll be ready, but can I let you know when I am? So it's important that we let the other person know that we're not abandoning them. We're not abandoning the conversation or the experience, right? And even if we feel that we ultimately need to, perhaps we let them know that we do really care, but that we're not in a position to offer them what they need or what they're asking for, right? Thanks, Carlos. Thanks, Katrina. So this is really this grace in a quick nutshell, so to say. And if you want to learn more, you can go directly to Upaya. If you're interested in doing a self-paced online program with me, it's 46 videos, which I know sounds like a lot.
I got through them all.
Yeah, but
I was behind schedule, but I did it.
Good, great, right. It is quite doable, and so you can reach out to me via the website.
I had the best practice of my life when I was doing those, though, because they're so like little. It's like there's
little
one a
clips.
day.
Yeah, little
Like,
clips,
yeah,
little
that's
clips. So, Christine, thank you so much.
Yes.
Joanne, thank you for all of your support also, and everyone here, thank you for supporting each other, yourselves, each other, and all of us that have come together. So really beautiful. Thank you.
I love meditation group. I love community in the meditation practice. They're my favorite. And I did decide if I were to ever go back and work one-on-one more with clients, it would be through a meditation practice. And I actually did a study on this. I don't know if you know this, Sam, but as part of when I was prepping for my dissertation, I was going to have practitioners like in the mental health field using meditation with clients. And so I had several that we did our conscious intervention scale, which I'll have to share with you, and did a pre and post session. And it showed that using meditation helped clients. It was just 9 minutes, of silence and centered practice. And even I had a practitioner who was a master's level student whose clients were in like the DW. It was like really tough clients, teenagers on Medicaid and court ordered, and even they got better. Like it was improved for them. But here was what was important. She felt better because she got 60 minutes of meditation in a day if she had 6 clients.
Right.
I don't know if anybody studied that. But imagine, like, if you want a regular practice, become a practitioner and bring it into, what you're doing. And there you go. And I just was thinking, that was my first thought when I was meditating. I'm like, Sam gets to do probably hours of meditation a day in her job.
I do.
And I was like, I bet Sam loves her job.
Yeah, I do. Oh, I love it so much, right? Yeah, my nervous system remains fairly regulated, and if I get dysregulated, I know right away. So.
Yeah. Thank you. It was good to have you here.